Thank you so much, sir. So with this, we look forward to a very engaging and exciting day ahead of us. We now begin our first session on Leaders' Insights on AI4care. And please join me welcome our esteemed leaders joining us on the dais. I start by inviting the moderator for the session, Mr. Venkatesh Babu, Bureau Chief, the Hindu Business Line. Welcome, sir. Thank you so much for joining us today. And may I invite Mr. Srini Mahalingam, Mr. Srini from GAV, sir, please. Mr. Ramakrishna Rao, GEHC, and Mr. Venkatraman Ravi Danha. We have a video before I hand it over to our moderator. Can we have the video, please?
In the symphony of innovation, Nautilus Hearing Solutions, a Hubli-based startup, found its rhythm at the Ketic NASCOM Center of Excellence. With Ketic COE's support, Nautilus introduced the TV diagnostic audiometer to the Karnataka Institute of Medical Sciences.
Hearing Solutions Private Limited. Our journey began with a simple yet powerful idea to bring accessible and affordable hearing healthcare solutions for the people who need it the most. Hearing loss, which is affecting millions globally, is expected to be doubled by 2050. So the need of innovative solutions is the necessary. The need for innovative solutions has never been more critical. Our association with the Mighty Center of Excellence, which is located at the dynamic Ketic, Bangalore, is a turning point. It not only provided us a platform, but a family of innovators and supporters who believed in our mission. What makes our journey more inspiring is that I come from a Tier 2 city called Hubli.
Myself, Dr. Ravindra Gadar, Head of the Department of ENT, KIMS Hubli. We are the tertiary care center in the entire North Karnataka, where our entire patient load is per day around 120 to 180.
Hello, my name is Nikhilesh. ನಾನು ಸೀನಿಯರ್ ರೇಡಿಯಾಲಜಿಸ್ಟ್ KMC ಹುಬ್ಳಿಯಲ್ಲಿ. ಈಗ ನಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಎಕ್ವಿಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ನಾಟಿಲಸ್ ಇಂದ ತುಂಬಾ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಉಪಯೋಗ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. 200 ಇಂದ 300 ಪೇಷಂಟ್ ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನಿಂಗ್ ಗೆ, ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರಿಯಲ್ ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನಿಂಗ್ ಗೆ, ಸ್ಕೂಲ್ ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನಿಂಗ್ ಗೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಕ್ಯಾಂಪ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ನಮಗೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಅನುಕೂಲ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
ಅವಾಗ ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆ ಏನ್ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಜನರಿಗೆ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಹಾವೇರಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ದಾಂಡೇಲಿ ಗದಗ ಈ ತರ ಏರಿಯಾದಂತ ಹಿಯರಿಂಗ್ ಟೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಹುಬ್ಳಿ ತನಕ ಟ್ರಾವೆಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಮಿನಿಮಮ್ 50 to 60 kilometers ಟ್ರಾವೆಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು.
The introduction of the Nautilus device has significantly enhanced the ability to conduct precise and efficient hearing tests. The streamlined process has resulted in quicker assessments, allowing for prompt diagnosis and treatment recommendations. Patients and doctors have expressed satisfaction with the modern and user-friendly technology, contributing to a positive overall experience at KIMS.
From the Department of ENT and from the entire KIMS Hubli, we sincerely thank the Mighty Center of Excellence. It's been a Herculean task and they have done a wonderful job.
The impact has been incredible. Faster, more accurate results and better outcomes. It's been a honor to witness that our innovation is making a real difference in people's life. I wanted to extend my profound gratitude to the Ketic, mighty center of excellence, not just by providing this opportunity, but for their unwavering support. I invite you to be a part of this journey for making caring healthcare accessible. Together we can create a world where innovation meets impact and dreams become reality.
Over to moderator, sir.
Hey, good morning, everybody. First of all, thank you for taking the time to be here. Very pleasantly surprised to see on a Tuesday morning so many people assembled. Pleasantly surprised also for the reason, given the notorious traffic of Bangalore, that all of you actually managed to. I'm told that a couple of us panelists unfortunately are still stuck in traffic. So very pleasantly surprised to see you guys actually be here on time. I actually took 52 minutes to travel 4.3 kilometers to this venue. So, of course, we can keep cribbing about the notorious traffic of Bangalore and all the major cities across the country till eternity. Hope it eventually gets fixed, but nonetheless, thankful that all of you are here. When NASSCOM first invited me to moderate this particular session, I was a little bit skeptical. I know nothing of medtech, but like all journalists, I've realized that we are generalists, and on top of that, it's easy to ask questions than to answer. I leave the tougher part to both my esteemed panelists to do that. We have a very interesting topic today to converse about. This is of role of artificial intelligence in preventive care, precision medicine and personalized treatment. What I intend to do is during the course of next half an hour or so, probably have my esteemed panelists start off by giving a little bit of perspective. Let me start off with, do I call you Mr. Ravi? Venkat? Okay, Ravi. Ravi is easier. Okay. Ravi represents one of the largest medtech companies on the globe. He's with Danner. Thank you, Ravi, for joining this particular panel. A little bit of perspective over next 4 to 5 minutes on how you see. One of the things is I've been tracking the tech sector for about a little over a quarter decade. Each time there is something new around the corner, they say that this is the next breakthrough. There have been lots of misses along the way, but today if you were to throw a small pebble probably in the crowd outside which is stuck in the traffic, every other person would say that we are after all in Bangalore. They have some connection of working in AI. Okay, so AI has become that ubiquitous. So why don't you start off, Ravi, by giving us a little bit of perspective on what Danner is doing, what is the kind of scope? Is AI actually all that is said to be? Is it a little bit of vaporware at this stage? And there are various degrees of skepticism which we will get into during the course of the conversation. But why don't you start off by giving us a little bit of perspective from your end?
Thank you. Thank you for having me in this conference and in this panel. Really appreciate that. To set a context, I want to talk a little bit about Danaher because that frames the perspectives that I'll be sharing immediately, right? So we are a large medtech company. We have 3 platforms: diagnostics, life sciences, and biotech. Diagnostics, as the name says, is around diagnosing as early as possible, as accurately as possible, disease states or changes in your body. So Beckman Coulter does a lot of blood work, chemistry, immunoassay, hematology, etc., etc. Leica Biosystems does biopsies and digital pathology. Cepheid does RT-PCR and molecular diagnostics for quickly detecting diseases. So that's the diagnostics platform. So it's all around fast, accurate, precise, early detection of diseases, diagnosis. The life sciences is around discovery and curation, if you will, cure, if you will, right? So, yeah, Ramashna. Good morning.
So Ram from GE joins us. Thanks, Ram. Thanks for taking the time. I'm sure that you escaped finally the Bangalore traffic. Okay, thanks for being here. Yeah, please do continue.
I know Ram well, so later on the latest hour one. So that's if you understand Tamil. Sorry about that. The life sciences platform for Danaher works with innovators and with large pharma companies on understanding mechanisms, understanding disease pathways, and finding a solution for curation, the cure or delay. So, like a Microsystems is a microscopy company that is heavily into sort of neuro surgeries or ophthalmic surgeries, etc., etc. SciEx is a mass spec company that pushes the envelope on detection limits and accuracy of metabolomics, if you will, I mean, all sorts of mass spectrometry, genomics, etc. So there are companies that make monoclonal antibodies, or mRNAs for vaccines. So Aldevron is a company that made the mRNA for the vaccine that went into Moderna. So that's sort of, we work with innovators, we work with large research institutes to understand disease pathways and accelerate cure for that. Biotech is around scale up and manufacturing, if you will. So large separator collars, large bioreactors, Cytiva, Paul, these are some of the company names that are into scaling up solutions for very large scale manufacturing and distribution. So every vial of Covishield or every vial of Covaxin had an equipment train that was made by a Danaher company through its manufacturing. So that's the context. And to now specifically answer your questions around AI, AI has been around for a while. The way I look at AI is it's a confluence of many different capabilities that are coming together now. I'm old enough to have punched into a card computing code and go into a room and put it in, and 24 hours, 36 hours later get a result back. And that was state of the art in India at IIT Madras when I was doing undergrad. I have submitted jobs to Cray workstations at universities, at NCSA and stuff, to get results back 6 hours later, to a point where I now know that the cell phone that I own probably has better computing power. So there is an acceleration of computing that has touched every part of our life, including, I mean, very specifically for SciEx, very, very, very large amounts of data that are automatically looked for peak searching. What used to be painful and days to do. When I did X-ray diffraction, I mean, you have the Shutter cameras, you do camera work, you develop the film, you look at the density, you look at books to find out if there is a phase transformation. Now there are micro wells that do reactions and do these things automatically, and you can do thousands of experiments that I used to take a day to do in a matter of minutes. So there is a computing power that has come in that's amazing. The other one is data access and data. So very large disparate sets of data are coming together, and there are data scientists in this team. There are panels here. I mean, Prasad is going to be talking about AI and getting into a lot into the technical side of things. But data is now ubiquitous, data is available, data is curatable, data is connectable, and very large amounts of data is easily transferable. So there is availability of data, there is computing power. I mean, we used to talk about bioinformatics as a wave. That's history now. Now we are only talking about deep learning and AI and Gen AI and things of that nature. These are all evolutions of the same thing. And the last bit about it is the whole access and accelerating and the sort of the regulatory framework and the medical community coming together and embracing this as a technology. Earlier, I mean, when I was small and went to a doctor, there was a touch and feel and a diagnosis based on their historic information. Now telemedicine, doctors frequently are not in the same room that you are in. So there is a mindset shift where the medical community is coming together, embracing large amounts of data, large capabilities of accelerated analysis to now come up with insights. All of this converges together into machine learning, deep learning, AI, Gen AI. And the beauty of it is it doesn't have the one fallacy that every scientist or every human being has, which is a bias. When we are taught scientific methodology to not be biased, come up with a hypothesis, validate, invalidate it. But every hypothesis I can ever come up with is based on certain biases that I have or certain knowledge that I have. and a computer can now come up with equally plausible and equally convinced itself, bias free. I mean, it can say, X is this or X is exactly the opposite of that, and just try these experiments out, massive scale. So speed is what this is inaugurated. The way Danaher looks at AI and many of the meta companies is, there are, I forget the code, who made the code. They say any early stage technology, there is a lot of, we overestimate the immediate impact and terribly underestimate the long-term impact. And I think AI is yet another, and you can insert any technology in here when you think about cell and gene therapy, genomics, genetic medicine, personalized medicine. We are not looking at solving world hunger and every disease in this world in the next 5 years with this, but for very targeted applications and questions. Digital pathology is something I think Sanjeev talked about. There are algorithms now that can aid pathologists to improve the outcome, speed, and you can get multiple consults across on a basis that's already sort of set for you through an AI algorithm. And once that is set, it's easy to translate that across ethnicities, across populations. We work with, for example, Tata Memorial Hospital, where the AI algorithm for lung cancer that they have does not predict it well for the Indian patients that Tata Memorial in Bombay is seeing, because our exposure to dust levels, for example, or our exposure to tuberculosis bug is very different from the rest of the world. So your baseline needs to be shifted. But the same algorithm with tons of data, which is what India has, very, very quickly can be tweaked to make it much more powerful and precise for the variances that we see within our population. The government is playing a great role in making healthcare accessible to all through more and more insurance schemes, and also these research centers getting and regulations coming in the way to accelerate innovation around us. So we are at a beautiful confluence of many technologies coming together. You can call it deep learning, AI, Gen AI, whatever. But the world there is a definite tipping point that we cannot come back from. Yes, I mean, is this, Skynet coming and Terminators coming to take over, or is it going to solve world hunger? There are two ends to the Hollywood or Bollywood stories on what this may lead to. I think reality will be somewhere in the middle, and it depends on who is driving it. And this is no different from any other technology. I mean, when Dolly or cloning was first invented, oh my God, there was so much hangama around. Is this going to destroy human individuality? When it comes to genetic disorder treatment through CRISPR-Cas9, so the gene editing, there's always a question around ethics. And I'm a very, very big optimist. I mean, I have to be at this age, right? The human beings will find the right way. There are going to be interesting side, journeys that we will all read about. But in general, progress is unidirectional, and it is making the world a lot better today than it was 25 years ago. And we'll go a lot deeper into any of this if you would like.
Ravi seems to be convinced that we are at an inflection point, and before I go to Ram, I'll give a little bit of a gap so that he can, one, A, catch his breath, and B, also, they are also a manufacturer who doesn't know GE Healthcare. Probably there isn't a single person in this room who doesn't do. Before that, I want Srini Mahalingam from GS Labs Gaps to weigh in, because they're more of a pure software kind of a player. I want his perspective, since they work with some of the largest medtech companies in the world, as well as with some of the largest hospital chains in the country too, in India. So if you could weigh in with your perspective, Srini, then we will have Ram come in. Okay?
Sure, Venkatesh, thank you. Venkatesh gave me only 5 minutes. I should have used AI's help to compress my 5 hours content into this 5 minutes. I didn't do that today morning. Anyway, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, NASSCOM, for organizing this wonderful event, and thanks to you all for participating in this and the opportunity I got this year. Venkat, the first point that I would say about AI is, what does AI stand for, the definition of AI? And many of us have been discussing this in the past few years, but I want to explicitly insist here that AI, especially for healthcare, is not artificial intelligence, it's augmented intelligence. And the reason I say that is, while we all embrace technology, we are looking for AI to solve many things for us, not sure if I'm ready to completely rely on Dr. Devika now. And Ram, you missed Dr. Devika from 2050. Okay, you can ask Sanjeev. He's been treated by her. So, augmented intelligence, because the clinicians, the physicians, nurses, they still exist, they will still exist, right? And how AI can help to take out a lot of inefficiency from the system, take out a lot of non-productive activities that are being performed them. All this is how will make AI really efficient and make the physicians do a better job, right? And that's why I keep saying that it's an augmented intelligence, especially when it comes to healthcare. I'm okay, somebody, a chatbot talking to me for my banking transaction, validating my, login password and all that. That's fine, right? But still I need the touch and feel by a doctor. If not 100%, at least I would be satisfied with that, right? With that said, I just wanted to now get into some specifics about how this AI will be a journey in the healthcare sector, right? Again, going to 2050 and meeting Dr. Devika, how it could be a journey, right? When it comes to AI in healthcare, we all start thinking about precision medicine and all this technology, to make it the personalized healthcare, personalized treatment, etc. Right? We directly jump into the clinical part of it. But there lies a major thing before that, the non-clinical part within the healthcare, which is the operational aspect. So I would categorize AI playing a major role in the operational aspect and then the clinical aspect. Not in any form of sequential, but then there are a lot of operational aspects where AI can play a major role, take away the inefficiencies that I just mentioned, thereby then focus more on the clinical aspect to it, right? A classical example is on the billing area, the data exchange between hospitals, providers, and the insurance companies, the payers. And then a lot of operational things happening, how a patient can be discharged quicker than making them wait even after the treatment is completed by 10 a.m. in the morning. Majority of the discharge happens late in the evening, right? That's the reality today. How AI can play a major role in these operational aspects, right? And other part I want to talk about on the category of AI, right? Two categories. One is the prediction aspect, and the second one is on the new kid in the block, Gen AI, how they can play a role, right? Prediction is there for quite some years, and how we can make it more efficient. Like, can we predict an hospital acquired infection? Thereby we can save more lives. That's on the clinical aspect. Can we predict a better bed management in hospitals? Not just saying that how many beds are available today. Can we predict for the next 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, how the bed management can be planned so major hospitals can make it very efficient that the patient doesn't have to wait to get admitted, right? That's an example. The second one is on the Gen AI part, right? How the unstructured data, right? Venkat talked about we being the source of a lot of data available, right? How the unstructured patient data can be utilized, and then that can be efficiently translated into a precise summary for the doctors to take some clinical decisions. So this is how I've put the context of AI in the healthcare. I talked more about the hospitals and insurance, the payers and providers, because that's where, GS Lab Gaps as an organization, we do a lot of work with a lot of our healthcare customers. So with that, I would conclude here, and for any questions, I'll take it later, Venkatesh.
So, Srini's contention is it's more of augmented intelligence rather than artificial intelligence, and this is a journey, a continuum rather than an end point. Both points well taken. Ram, you represent probably the 800-pound gorilla in the medtech space. What is GE's perspective on what role AI is doing in shaping the entire discussion around all the topics which have been flagged till now?
Hey, first of all, good morning. I got late. I wake up and just look at my Google map. It said it take like 1 hour to reach from Whitefield to the this place. Instead of trying 8 o'clock, I said, okay, 8:20, let me start. Then Google is automatically, updating, hey, traffic is going like 1 hour, 1 hour, 20 minutes. Finally landed very late. I missed the first talk. Sorry about that.
They need to incorporate better AI. Google needs to get its act together. Okay.
So, yeah, thank you. And quickly, I think I come from GE Healthcare. I think most of you know about GE Healthcare equipment. And Ravi talked about it is basically we are at a place where a lot of data, we have to use a lot of perspectives and all those things. And Srini touched about important aspect. Everybody talked about artificial, it's augmented. I just add a little bit more on that one. It's called augmented because it is not just the data you take a decision, right? You have to give some additional information, thereby a clinically better decision is made. That's why it's called more augmented instead of artificial. That's how the definitions are evolving. I think before we jump on AI, GE Healthcare did a survey of across the globe in 2023 because we also want to understand how, first of all, the patients are feeling about using, the data-driven decision rather basically clinician comes to them. That's one study. And second thing is how is entire clinical ecosystem is placed. Because we talk about AI, but at the end of the day, the doctor who is there, the clinician, he takes the decision there. How much load they have it, right? The second aspect. And third aspect here is, hey, how data is coming. Today, for example, most of you, when you go to the various hospitals and various clinics, you may go to hospital A, they will have one kind of report structure for your pathology, the X-ray, the CT, everything. They give you something. When you go to hospital B, because you want a second opinion in case if you have something major you observe in your body, right? Then that structure is different, right? So the entire data ecosystem is one more angle. So if I take a step back and see the problems, right, it is not that AI is taking away anything. First of all, the population is growing and the clinicians are basically, the practitioners are reducing. The data shows that 2030 will be shortage by 10 million clinicians across the globe, okay, because the population is growing. Why 10 million clinicians are less? Because by 2030, the aging population also going to touch like 400 million people getting added additionally if you're age 60 plus. That means you have aging population, you have less clinicians. That means we have a huge problem to solve. So we need a technological intervention here. And that's where we're trying to look into how you technological interventional here, thereby you could solve this problem. Okay, the first thing is, I think Srini touched upon a clinical versus basically operational. So I go operational, two aspects again. I think, billing to discharge, those kinds of things. But more important today, if you go to the hospital, end of the day, the doctor, radiologist has to sign on the report. Even though somebody types for him, he is the end man to sign on the report, say yes, good or bad, or they have to do next intervention. That means the doctors are doing, I think I would say this, the study shows that the doctors are not even spending 60% of the time on clinical aspects. They're trying to spend in terms of documentation, in terms of understanding data, in terms of correlating a lot of those things. So the intervention of, I think, the technology would be useful if you can assist the clinicians, right? You go to any big hospitals in Bangalore or any other place across India, across the globe, the top-notch hospitals, the clinicians are overloaded because everybody want to go to him to get a better perspective. But think about if you augment a technology with getting all data together, help the clinicians to make a right insights. That's where we intervene with G Healthcare, our equipments and all those things. Not just taking a data. Can I help basically a clinician to basically at least screen out, which are not very big cases? Can you help? Can X-ray machine by itself, can it help us screening the basic level of the things? Can CT machine can get me the right kind of screening, thereby the image is much better. For example, if you go to any MR machine, I think most of you, if not, touch wood, I don't want you to go to MR machine, but if you go to MR, it sounds a lot, right? It is basically phobia. You think about when you move around, the image won't come properly. So can I help to get the image correction automatically, even though the patient moves around? So what I'm saying is, how do I assist a clinician to take a better imaging, better diagnosis? That's where we try to intervene. Thereby the clinician load will be reduced with technology. Second thing, once the clinician load is technology, so you can do more work. The second thing is operational aspects. I think people touched upon that. I don't want to go dwell into it, but I want to go clinically deep a little bit more. I think we talk about precision health I think across the globe, if you go and type in Google, you get number of articles, number of things that precision healthcare means. But what exactly you want precision healthcare means? Because as an individual, each one of us also a patient at some point of time. When we want something, we want to know immediately, right? You do not want to wait. For example, most of us have phones. We go and Google it or WhatsApp it, right? There's 2 universities available today very easily in our hand. But you really want to know whether you want to consult next level or not, right? So how do we do that? That's more important thing. Because today the 95% of data in hospital or a patient is underutilized, or I would say not even utilized at all. So I think precision health comes into picture here, that how do I make sure the basic things taken care at home itself? Thereby your 50% of your BPs and sugar levels can come down, because anxiety can be reduced. So the care is moving from, hospital segment to the home segment. That means you really want the care immediately. It is not about I go to hospital, I go and get the clinician. No, you want immediately. So the other aspects growing in the world here is, how do I get precise information about my health condition at that moment when I want it? And that is going to be the huge task for entire ecosystem, both in technology, the device manufacturers, the clinicians. How do you bring that to when you want it precisely? And that's where the technologies are going in. And now with all these challenges, think about how I use my artificial intelligence in more accurately, or augmented intelligence. Because way back, people have rules. For example, hey, if I have sugar, let us say if I go on a fasting, you get below 100, I'm good. Now that went away, right? Now precisely like I want 100.5 or 95, thereby my diet plan could be modified. That's called rule-based learning. From rule-based learning to deep learning came actually 5 years back. Now the things are talking about a Gen AI or a chatbot. Now we're going a little bit deeper. You want to take a lot of data together and give a precise information. So I think that's where I think it is very early stage to tell like how augmented intelligence is going to change the world. But definitely there are a lot of problems in the world which actually technology has to intervene, thereby it be much better place to live. That's where I would put upon the point. Thank you.
All the three of them seem to be selling this lovely vision of the future, wherein 5 years back it was machine learning, now it's deep learning with neural networks, leading on to Gen AI kind of a thing. Even before I proceed to ask my next question, let me ask you, the audience, how many of you here are wearing either a smart band or a smart watch or a smart ring, anything around? Could you raise your hands, please? A significant chunk of people are doing so. The amount of data which is put out, how do you ensure that privacy concerns are addressed, that data is secure, that it's not misused in any manner? How do you ensure that the data which is generated, somebody like you who was saying that because you suck in so much amount of data, that there is no bias in the algorithms which you deploy? And also on issues surrounding regulation, whether this data should be retained within the country. If you look at India is fighting a huge battle to ensure that data remains within the country. Why don't you start off, Ravi, by giving your perspective in terms of how do you ensure on all these four measures? Somebody like a global corporation like Danaher is addressing these challenges.
I'll touch upon a couple of them. I'm not going to get into government regulations on where the data should reside. That's for the regulators to decide. But you're absolutely right. Data is the new oil. Data is powerful, and the owner of the data is the individual. Those are, I think, universal truths that have been accepted. Connected instruments or connected data generation sources is a reality. I don't think we're going to ever go back from it. So the question here is, how do you work in a connected, networked, data-rich environment where this is spewing my heartbeat to somebody right now, right? And make sure that I have control over how that gets used. Governments have done a good job. Different governments, regulatory agencies are at different stages of evolution, and here is where fast adoption seems to be the key. Then we get some watershed events like the Cambridge Analytica situation that happens. Congressional hearings happen. So the awareness around how to control and put ring fence and blinkers around what's accessible, what's not accessible, and what to do with the data that you have. The regulatory space is quite active where it can be controlled. Then there is another element around cyber security where there are intentional people trying to get this data to do unintended things, right? So regulations and technology solutions around cybersecurity, they come hand in hand. There are so many ethical committees, and there are organizations of renowned scientists looking at where the power and the control lies. And the good news is, and now as an individual, not as a corporation, as an individual, I've never heard any debate around who owns the data. It has always been at the individual. I mean, every country, every company agrees to that. How do you enforce it is where regulations are evolving. How do you protect it from cybersecurity, from people who want to use it for unintended purposes, where cybersecurity comes in. And it's a lock, step and barrel. There will be some missteps, like we heard the famous Cambridge Analytica situation, but it's going to evolve. Now, where should the data reside for a different country or ethnic population is something that I will leave to regulatory agencies, because there are some data that is universal and can benefit everybody in the right redacted curated form. And there are some data that are very specific to me. I mean, my biome, my gut biome, and my genetic makeup is very different from Ramakrishna's. I mean, I wish I was like him, right? But I'm not. And there is an individual data that is useful only for me, and there is a generic data that is very useful for curing a whole bunch of things. That right balance, I leave it to the regulators and the think tanks to do.
From a very layman's perspective, Srini, if you were to look at, we keep hearing of data breaches daily basis across the world, intentional, unintentional, whatever the reason be. What if based on leaked data, I am denied health insurance, for instance, because of whatever my metrics are, and based on that? How do you address this kind of ethical challenges? Because that's a key component when AI actually does get rolled out in a larger manner.
No, it's a very broader topic that we are getting into. Again, I'm not getting into the aspect of regulation and all that. I think the key to all this, whether it's AI or any other technology that is using the data, we need to have data protected during two things, right? One is the data in transit, the data in motion. Other is the data that resides somewhere, right? So data residing somewhere is how the individual entities is protecting the data of the patients. Right now, there is really no a very structured mechanism around the world. And it's very hard to do that as well, because every entity is having the patient data to themselves, right? And we need to put the basic things about whether you follow all the regulations, in globally, if it's HIPAA or high trust, etc. And then in India we have the DPDP and all that. While I'm not an expert in that specific area, that has to be followed, and we need to have an audit mechanism. And when we have an AI solution deployed or implemented, we need to follow the same governance mechanism. The second is the data in motion. When we actually have the data shared across, we need to have some structure in place to be implemented. That's the reason why we had HL7 brought into picture, and then now the fire standards are getting into, everybody started following the fire standards now, right? And that's again, a Gen AI will play a role here in how an unstructured data of a patient's data can be converted into a structured data. Thereby it gets into that box, so that any governance around that can be easily followed. Otherwise, if you leave the unstructured data, you cannot have a patient's x-ray or a radiology notes just shared with anyone else over a fax. It is happening, but is it safe? I doubt it. That's why Gen AI will play a major role in making the data structure, thereby getting into that box which is governed by all these regulations.
Since GE Healthcare sells in 100 plus countries, Ram, how do you ensure that there are no algorithm biases? Do you structure each of these missions according to a country in which it is sold? How do you address this kind of challenges? That's one. Second, can AI actually bridge the infrastructure challenges of the Indian healthcare sector? For instance, all of us know the amount of shortage of doctors, the amount of shortage of beds. Can AI ensure that it addresses and bridges some of the infra challenges which the healthcare sector in the country is facing?
Yeah. The first one, I think you're right. I think Srini and Ravi touched upon also. I think the regulations are also, I would say, evolving. It is not, I think, regulation is set at this point of time in terms of data sharing. It is just coming up, and we have to learn along with that. The second thing is, right, the FDA, which governs largely across the globe heavily, wherever it is see, most of the governments is basically FDA is the one. FDA is basically Food and Drug Agency in USA. They have a lot of standards has been set. They are the basically forefront. Then everybody is following right now. The China, the Japanese, India is also started doing that one. So as a medical device manufacturer, or when we build an algorithm, the first of responsibility is we have to understand the standards, what is there. That's most important thing. Both in terms of data from the device, data in the hospital, data in the transit, and data in the cloud. And also, if for example, if any application is basically accessing the cloud-based data, then at the end we are responsible that application is also working very well, be it an Android phone or basically be it an Apple phone. Because some of our applications are sonovision, sonographic, which we provide for ultrasound specialists, thereby they could do on the spot checks, but the data resides in the cloud. So I think the data moves across the care continuum today. Does not stay at one place. So as a healthcare manufacturer, a lot of emphasis is put in terms of following the standards. And second thing is cybersecurity being one of the important thing. We also do ethical hacking inside. We really want to ensure, hey, our equipment or algorithm, the data in the transit, data and device does not get hacked by anybody else. So we have a cybersecurity lab, especially in Bangalore, in GE Healthcare Center, across the globe, all the cybersecurity labs are there. Thereby, we basically ensure at that point of time, because evolving, you cannot say basically you do some algorithm, some product today, it cannot be hacked by in future. So the third emphasis is basically continuously improving it. You have to continuously look out how the cybersecurity things are evolving. So the three main things what we do: following the standards, making sure we do ethical hacking and all those cybersecurity things inside the house, and continuously put effort in terms of understanding how the technology evolving in this area. That's how we do it. The second question what you asked about, how do we help in terms of addressing? So we're trying to bring right now the algorithms on the machine itself, because the source itself you could address properly. You don't need to go to further. So we're trying to help. The first level is how do I help my clinician to take a right decision, a right insight. Let's say, for example, if X-ray machine in a hospital takes 100 X-rays in a day, could I only send only those X-rays which are required study by clinician? And that's why we're trying to help from the machine point of view. Can I give that data? Thereby at least you're at least reducing the load of the clinician, rather than basically helping. He can focus on something else. That's one way we're looking at equipment point of view. Second, I think we work with a lot of large corporate chains at this point of time, and helping them in terms of data curated, right? Tele ICUs is one of the important aspects which we started. Medanta and Apollo, we're working with them, those groups, where they really want to see how they could reach the far population from a central clinic with the same kind of clinical efficacy and all those things. So thereby we're trying to help the large hospital chains how they go to rural areas with the same kind of things. So that's the kind of interventions, but still coming up the lot many things to do.
Unfortunately, we have completely run out of time, and the Master of Ceremonies has already rung the bell twice. But since we have such a eminent audience, let me take advantage of a kindness, and if there are one or two specific questions for our panel, if you can put your hand up, identify yourselves. I don't want a comment. I want a question if there is one. Please, the gentleman over there. Yeah, you are. Please go ahead.
Okay, my question is to Mr. Venkatraman. We are a very small gene sequencing biotech company. We work on environmental science and on gene sequencing. We have noticed one thing: the adoption of genomic data among clinicians is still very slow. For example, we have few clinical cases where we predicted cancer 2 years in advance using RNA transcription, and the clinicians, I don't know, for their own good reasons, they have not taken our report seriously, and the same patient after 2 years went on to develop a full-blown breast cancer. So where is the problem? Is it because the clinicians are not trained, or is it lack of from the government? So I don't know what exactly. So most of the time it's very demotivating for us is that we give the data to the doctors and they somehow still stick on to the histopathological data and other old this thing, and because of which our business is not growing. So,
Ravi, could you help him grow his business?
Okay, so I am not a medical doctor, so your question is to a group that is sitting here. But let me attempt it. Adoption of a technology depends on three things. One is the readiness of the technology, which is where people like you and companies like us work on. The second is its value to the end output, to the customer or to the patient, right? Patient outcome. And the third one is the intermediary who there is change that needs to be managed, and change can both be very exciting or very scary, right? And I do not know where we are on this. Me and my company work on one end of the spectrum where we make it ready, precise, valuable. There is a change management on adoption. The caregivers need to believe it and apply it. And then there is, of course, that is accelerated by showing value to the end in a patient outcomes, right? So I think all of these need to come lockstep together. How do you accelerate that? Depends. There are, India just did 2 cell and gene therapy trials. Immunil and Immunact did that. I was listening, just last Tuesday, I was listening to Dr. Narula, where he was talking about kids that had absolutely no hope or no future. They were not going to see past days, if not months, fully cured from one, extraction out of there, a modification, and a cell therapy given to them. Such cases, when it happens, is amazing, and doctors will remember. Think about the good intent, right? Every group is doing it with the best of intentions. You got to believe that. So adoption from doctors, if they are slow, that's because their intent is to protect the patient, to make sure that the outcome is the best for the patient. So help them understand how your technology can lead to better patient outcomes. That's where change management comes in.
One final
Believe good
question.
intentions.
Sorry, Ravi. We are completely out of time. One final question for the gentleman over here. I hope it is a brief one. And
wasn't a question actually. I wanted to answer him.
okay.
I'm a clinician. I'm a cancer surgeon. My practice in Delhi. So, like, you know, we often are approached by people that we are having such and such solution. Please try and use this. But like what Mr. Ravi is also mentioning, it all needs to go through a rigorous process. We can only trust a thing where it has been tested. We can try these things out in limited settings, but we need to scale it in, through multiple centers or through lot many patients before we start telling that we can be using this for patients, not otherwise. So it's not like we don't want to, but then we won't be comfortable doing it unless we have got good evidence to support that.
Very interesting perspective. Very clearly we are at an inflection point. Unfortunately, ma'am, I'm completely out of time. I'm really sorry I'm unable to accommodate you. I'm sure that this gentleman would be around, so I'm sure we could have a conversation later. AI very clearly is at a point wherein it is likely to make healthcare much more affordable. Quality of healthcare is likely to improve. That's the aspiration, even as we look at things like ensuring guardrails regarding privacy, data security, and also ensuring that the data is used right. Thank you for being such a lovely audience. Thanks to all my panelists over here. Thanks for taking the time, and thanks to NASCOM and Sanjeev for the opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Panelists, can I request you to please stay back on the dais for another moment or two? May I invite Mr. Sanjeev Malhotra to please hand over a memento to each of our panelists. Well, if you found that useful, I'm sure they deserve a bigger round of applause from all of us. Let's do this. Thank you so much, everyone.